Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel for your Nottingham Forest versus Leeds United preview. Like always in the preview, if you are new to the channel, we start by talking about Daniel Farke's press conference, what's been said in that, who's injured, who's missing, that sort of thing. Then we move on to predicted lineups. So we look at what Daniel Farke we expect him's going to play. Then we talk about what I would actually play as well. Then we look at a bit of Nottingham Forest, what their predicted lineup be, how they've been getting on. And finally, we look at how Leeds United can actually exploit this Nottingham Forest team. And finally, the fifth thing we look at and we talk about is obviously the score prediction for Sunday's game as well. Obviously, it is going on Sunday, this game. It's not on Saturday because Nottingham Forest did play away in Austria against Sturm Graz last night, of course, as well, when they got a 0-0 draw. So hopefully, that should have them on the back burner. So for Leeds United coming to town, they might not be full of confidence, and Leeds United can hopefully get a positive result. But let's get into it, and let's start with Daniel Farke's press conference. So what did we learn from Daniel Farke's press conference today then? We learned two main things about team news. First of all, we learned that Calvert-Lewin is struggling with an abductor injury, which I think he did pick up in the Brighton game. He's also not been involved in team training so far this week. However, there is obviously a few days until we do actually play. Obviously, Farke mentioned last week that anyone that doesn't feature in the final team training of the week will not feature in the game. So if he's not in team training tomorrow, he probably won't be playing on Sunday. He also mentioned Bornau potentially has an MCL problem, but that's not too important. And he finally touched upon Nonto, suggesting that Nonto will be available and he's growing week by week, having been in team training for 2 weeks. He also went on to talk a bit about, is this a must-win? And I agree with Daniel Farke on here. He basically suggested that it wasn't a must-win, and that we've asked Daniel Farke, apparently 7 out of the 11 games now are the must-wins, and every single time he said no. He said we're looking for a point a game, so 38 points or 9 wins. I think we probably need 10 wins, if I'm being totally honest. I don't know why he keeps quoting 9 wins, which is obviously 27 points. But yeah, that is the updates from Farke's press conference. Let's move on to a bit of predicted news, shall we? So, predicted lineups then. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, this is the team that I expect Daniel Farke to go with. So I think there'll be 2 changes for the Nottingham Forest game. I think Dan James will start on the right-hand side. I think this is for 2 reasons. I think DJ so far this season has been trying to come back from injuries. He had injuries back at the end of last season. He's had injuries at the start of this season. And I think finally we're seeing him back to full fitness now. And I do think long-term he will be the preferred choice from Daniel Farke on that right-hand side. He obviously had a fantastic year, or start of the year last season for Daniel Farke in the Championship. And I do think he offers a lot more on that right-hand side than Brendan Aronson. I think he's quicker. I think he's stronger. That pacing behind, I think, when we talk about his pace, is massively important. I think that will really expose Nottingham Forest, who potentially won't play with 2 of their strongest fullbacks, with obviously Olayiena missing. Not to give too much away on their predicted lineup, but that is the case. And then I also think he'll bring Stack in to the middle. I think this game is naturally going to be massive for midfield presence, and I think we're going to need strength in there as well. We tried to go with the more playmaker in Tanaka and the ball progressor in Tanaka away at Brighton, and I don't think it really worked. I think he sort of got swallowed up by the physicality. So I think he will go back to type, and I think this is Daniel Farke's maybe preferred midfield at this moment in time. So they're the 2 changes that I think he will go with. What would I do, though, is the question probably on all your tongues and potentially not. But I actually, for the first time probably so far this season, I actually agree with his lineup. I would like long-term to see Nonto feature on, obviously, the right-hand side. I think he's a better player fundamentally than Dan James. I think he holds the ball up better. I think he can bring people into play better. And I just think he's got a much more higher football intelligence than Daniel James, with the greatest respect to DJ. But I think the physical attributes of obviously Dan James are something you cannot ignore. That pace, that strength, the running power that he has, the way he can press, I think are all massive traits. So for this game, actually, I would actually go with the lineup that Daniel Farke said, which people are going to say, Scott, you're always Farking. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. But when I agree with him, what can I say? I agree with him. Anyway, let's move on and bring Nottingham Forest into this graphic. So, Nottingham Forest then, and how will they line up for this one? Well, we actually usually associate sort of Sean Dyche with a 4-4-2 formation, but since later on in his Everton time, and newly at Nottingham Forest, he's actually changed up his formation, and he now plays at Nottingham Forest. His preferred formation seems to be the 4-2-3-1. Obviously, something that we know with Daniel Farke usually playing that formation, obviously slightly changed this year. But this is how I would expect them to line up. Douglas Luiz went off against Man United with a hamstring injury, so I don't expect he'll play. Chris Wood's been out injured. Olayena has been out injured. To be honest with you, Forest have loads of injuries, so I want to cover them all. But that is the lineup I expect them to go with. But how can Leeds United actually get at this Nottingham Forest team? I do think there is weaknesses. I look at the fullbacks. I think Nico Williams has been fantastic for Nottingham Forest so far this season. So I think that's going to be a tricky side. He's been one of their better players. But Savona at right back, I've always thought is someone that you can get at. I don't think he's as good as Olaena. And we know Okafor is fantastic for us. He's one of our best players. So I think in transition is always something that's going to be an option for Leeds United in this one. I also think as well in this game, with sort of Nottingham Forest, they're not a team, in my opinion, at this moment, full of goals. Hudson-Odoi's not had the season he had last year. Gibbs-White's been really off it this season. A few Forest fans actually suggesting they should drop him. I don't think probably they should do that, but he's not had a great season at all by his own accounts. Chris Wood's not been firing as much and has now got injured. And Doy's has done okay at times, but not fully settled. So I think actually the goal scoring has been an issue for them. Since actually Sean Dyche has come in now, they managed to score in the first game against Porto. They won that game 2-0. They scored 2 against Man United, but I think part of that was that Man United just switched off after half-time when they came out, and obviously Forest scored 2 quick goals. But in the other 2, obviously, in the Europa League last night, and obviously against Bournemouth, they actually came out goalless, and I think that's something that we've got to look at. We've got to keep it at the back, tidy at the back. Sean Dyche teams naturally do not score loads of goals, so we've got to make sure we don't give anything cheap away, and then when we get our moments, take our chances. It is that simple in this one, in my personal opinion. And I think, again, when I look at the strength of Nottingham Forest, I know they've, as I talked about, Morgan Gibbs-White not having a great season. He's still a huge threat, in my opinion. Also, I think their midfield is really strong still. I look at Anderson. He dictates everything in that number 8 role. Since he signed from Newcastle, he's been absolutely fantastic. You've even seen him be fantastic for England. So I think Longstaff has to have his work cut out with Anderson. Obviously, Longstaff does know Anderson as well, so hopefully there's a bit of a playing style sort of clash there where Longstaff can sort of predict what Anderson's going to do. But the midfield, we're going to have to be strong in the midfield, which is, again, why I think we should probably go without Tanaka for this one, because up against Ryan Yates, who's a bit of a battler, you probably want Stack, and then up against Anderson, who's a bit more tidy on the ball, is going to get on the ball, start dictating play. Again, you want Longstaff tight on him. You don't want to let Anderson, because Anderson will like to drop and dictate from deep. You don't want to let him have the freedom there. We've got to be high and pressing onto Anderson and not let him have time on the ball, because he will kill you with time on the ball. But as I said, there is as I said, with the fullbacks that they've got, I think they're at this moment in time, especially on that left-hand side, I think that's a key bonus for them. Sean Dyche's teams don't score loads of goals from corners, do score loads of corners naturally from corners, but I actually, again, look at this team, and I think we should be aerially pretty strong still. I really do think that. Like, we've still got Calvert-Lewin, who's fantastic in the air. I think Biel's fantastic in the air. Rodon as well. I look at their team again. Murilla's not the tallest centre-backs. Mikulinkovic is brilliant in the air. But they're not a team blessed with loads of height. So again, I hope that's something that Leeds United can exploit in this one as well. Anyway, let's move on and have a look at a prediction for the game, shall we? Prediction time then. How do I expect this game to go? Well, anyone that's watched this channel and any of the previews so far, you will know I've actually been really positive on this channel so far in the previews, basically every single one. I've actually never, ever predicted a loss so far, which might sound ridiculous, but it's how I've seen the games and how I've thought they're going to go. My head this time is telling me something different, if I'm being totally honest. I don't think the stylistic matchup suits us at all, really. And I think fundamentally, the first goal in the game is huge. I think it's absolutely huge. More than any game we've played so far this season. I think if we go 1-0 down, which we've seen a common theme, I think we've only not gone 1-0 down twice, or maybe 3 times. Yeah, 3 times all season. The first game of the season, the time we drew 0-0 with Newcastle, and obviously the time we beat West Ham as well. But if we do go 1-0 down, which we have done in every single away game so far, I think it will be a long game and a long day for Leeds United. I really do. Because I think that will then play into their game plan. It will go into that low block, which we saw Nuno, even at Forest last year, implement with great success. They've also then got pace on the counter as well, with the likes of Hudson-Odoi, etc. And Gibbs-White, who I think can get in between the pockets as well if the game opens up. So I don't think this is a good matchup for us at all, if I'm being totally honest. So first goal is massive, and if we get the first one, predictions could change. But at the moment, my head is unfortunately saying a 2-0 loss. I also as well want to touch upon something that I think people have talked about this game. I think there's an understanding in the fan base that this is actually a must-win. I actually disagree with that. I don't agree with it at all. I said it at the start of the show. I actually don't think this is a must-win for Leeds United at all. And I actually would go as far as saying I don't think a point's a bad result at all. People might say I'm negative, but we are already 5 points ahead of Nottingham Forest in this league. If we maintain that come the end of the weekend, I think we're in a good spot as well. So I think a draw is a decent result. Obviously, a loss is an awful result, but a draw is a decent result, and obviously a win would be fantastic. But yeah, that is my preview for today. I hope you've all enjoyed the preview, as always. And if you've got to this point, if you could drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, massively helps the channel. And also, there's this thing called a hype button at the moment, you might have heard about. It like pops up, down, across from the likes. If you could press that as well, that really helps the channel. So if you could do that, that would be brilliant. But other than that, I will catch you all later, and hopefully Leeds United get a positive result at Nottingham Forest, although I don't think so. See you all later, everybody. Bye for now.